This channel is made possible by viewers like you. Thank you.
Lord of the Worlds here, taking a very quick break from dying in Elden Ring to talk about Brandon Sanderson's Secret Project 1. Okay, so here we are at the very beginning of the Secret Projects. We've been looking forward to this for like a year at this point. I'm excited. I'm sure you're excited. I know I literally waited up until it came out my time and was up to like 4 a.m. reading after that. It was great. Let's go ahead and jump right in. Before we do though, we're gonna have a quick chat about spoilers. So Secret Project 1, obviously I'll be talking all about the book. There might be some other just minor lore spoilers from around the Cosmere, but nothing too significant to worry about. And I'm not going to be talking about the other secret projects at all until they come out. Okay, ready? Let's jump in. Before we get started, one last final thing that I'd like to do. Okay, it's not too bad. Tress of the Emerald Sea. Overall, the story is fantastic. It's one of my favorites that Sanderson has ever put out, if not literally my favorite Sanderson work. It doesn't mean it's, completely without critiques, but it's definitely up there. And I think this is a pretty good intro to the Cosmere as well, if you want to get your friends to start reading it. It takes place later on in the timeline, but he hops around a lot anyways. I think that the book was more or less generally well structured. It does drag slightly towards the middle of the book. It feels like Sanderson kind of said, okay, everything stop. We have to explore this magic system real quick. And then it wasn't very quick. And while exploring the magic system did kind of drag at times, during the same section, we did get to explore a lot about the deeper aspects of the crew on the ship. I quite enjoyed most of the crew, I gotta say. I think overall, we could have used a little bit more time on the Crimson and especially the Midnight Seas. We didn't really get to see too much of those, and it makes sense in the story, but it would have been cool. The Crimson Sea was super fun, and it gave a sense of danger. Frankly, the whole planet is super dangerous, but the Crimson Sea, especially with these just gigantic spikes sprouting out of nowhere, super fun. The Midnight Sea was unfortunately a little bit underdeveloped for me. We could have spent a lot more time there. It is what it is, though. Most of the Midnight Sea sections take place during the climax of the book, so it's understandable why we didn't get to see too much of it. We also got to see our very first dragon in the entire Cosmere. This was fantastic. I loved every minute of it. We got to play around with some of the more fantastical dragon tropes that we've seen throughout fantasy over the years. Ultimately, I really loved the sections with the dragon. Those were probably my favorite part of the climax. Hi, kitty. After we get to the dragon, the climax really gets going, and we get to see the Midnight Sea after that. We get to see our fun Elantrian friend, who is she sucks. You gonna be up there for a while, Cat? She wants to go places, I think. Oh, that's gonna fall over. Oh well, let's keep going. She's just gonna be up. I think she's just gonna be up there now. Oh, and we got to see cats in this book. That was great. The Elantrian at the end had a cat. You are just the littlest diva, huh? Oh, I love this cat. Like I said towards the beginning, this is the most fun I've had with a Brandon Sanderson novel, possibly ever, but this was definitely the most fun I've had with the last few he's done. Especially since the last two that came out, Rhythm of War and Lost Metal, felt, I don't want to say like filler novels, but Rhythm of War was more of a setup for the Stormlight 5 book that's going to be coming out, and the Lost Metal felt like kind of like we're going to send these characters off, those characters being Wax and Wayne, with a little bit of weird Cosmere exploration also thrown in. So yeah, this would be my favorite of the most recent Sanderson works. And frankly, it just stands very well on its own. Okay, let's really quickly dive into the characters before we get to some of the more interesting lore aspects. First off, we have Tress. I loved her character arc. I loved everything about it. She was fantastic. It's great seeing this girl from, rural town out in the middle of nowhere, literally a rock in the middle of nowhere, transition into this glorious pirate captain. Her whole arc was very gratifying to watch, and we really felt her grow throughout the book. It just felt very natural, and I loved her character overall. So Charlie/Huck, I might be a little bit of an idiot, but I didn't see that coming at all. That completely caught me by surprise, which is, that's what we were going for. But still, it was very nice to reveal at the end that Charlie had been with us this whole time, growing alongside her and learning at the same time. What are you doing? Huck's betrayal towards the end of the book really did feel like a betrayal. And then the twist at the end that Huck is Charlie. It tied the whole thing together. Excuse me. I absolutely loved that part. And we got to have the classic sort of talking animal sidekick fairy tale thing going on. It worked super well in this context. Captain Crow, she was an absolute bastard, but in the cartoon villain sort of way. It honestly worked really well for this story, this sort of fairy tale aesthetic that Sanderson was going for here. We still really have no clue how she became a spore eater. I guess the Aethers just kind of picked her at some point. Who knows? Maybe we'll find out later. Either way, I really liked Captain Crow. She was a fun sort of a minor antagonist in the story. I also really enjoyed Anne, Fort, Saleh. Laggart was an interesting character. Really, all of the crew. Excuse me, that is my leg you're attacking. Hoyd was literal dumb fun in this book. He was just a great addition, and I loved that the story was told from his perspective. I don't think we've gotten any first-person stuff in the Cosmere so far, and it was really nice seeing Hoyd pop up and do his whole storytelling thing, but for, a whole book. Hi, kitty cat. And then the reveal at the end that he made a bet with the sorceress and is now an Elantrian. Super fun. Ulam was another very fun member of the crew, a Khandra. I believe he was mentioned by Milan in the Lost Metal at some point. Either way, super interesting, so much fun, and it's becoming more and more clear that the Khandra are going to be just these wild, gruesome, fun characters going forward. I'm very excited to see where that species develops into. Let's talk a little bit about the lore of this story. So the planet that this takes place on is called Lumar, and it's just an awesomely designed planet. Super fun, fantastical setting. It's got 12 moons that the Aethers are each involved in some regard. Lumar is just one of those fantastical settings that could never really exist in the real world. The moons are not really orbiting the planet. They're more of hovering above the faces of a dodecahedron, which is like a platonic solid. Super interesting concept, super fun world design. All in all, it ties into the Cosmere super nicely. Zissus, I believe that's how it's pronounced. I have to check the audiobook, actually. Either way, the dragon in the middle of the story was a fantastic addition. I'm very happy we got to see a dragon in the Cosmere. Finally, it's only halfway done, and we haven't really seen a dragon in dragon form on page at all. So it was nice to finally get that draconic reveal, if you will. And it looks like Dragonsteel, the stuff that we've been speculating about for ages but have no real information on, is just the steel that is on dragons. It is a part of their bodies, I guess. My pet theory is that it's dragons are almost living fabrials, so the dragon steel is somehow incorporating magic in some way. I don't know. I'm still working on it. It's not a very well developed theory yet. Either way, dragons giving boons and curses seems to be some sort of common theme. I don't know if that's going to continue to be a common theme in the Cosmere going forward, but we'll see how this plays out. Either way, Zissis, super fun to have in this book, and really added to that fairy tale fantastical setting. Okay, the Sorceress. Obviously an Elantrian. We've seen her before in, I believe, Secret History. She's been doing stuff in the background of the Cosmere for apparently like millennia at this point. I can't wait to discover more about her. But she sucks. Like, she's really just sadistic and twisted. The Sorceress was a great sort of end villain. Okay, and then we have the spores. So these are essentially little bits of like almost like sand or something like that that are floating down from the moons above. Again, this couldn't really exist in real life. This is just fantastical setting sort of stuff. What we really need to pay attention to is what the individual spores do. When you pour water on them or just get any water on them at all, they more or less explosively turn into other elements. For instance, the verdant spores underneath the green moon turn into vines, again, explosively. Zephyr spores, these are like blue, I think. These are like atmospheric or air elements, so they're used for propelling cannonballs. I'm assuming you could use them to possibly use in like oxygen tanks and stuff like that. We'll see more of them in the future, I'm sure. Sunlight spores are specifically like heat and light based. Then crimson spores are spiky boys. Why did I write that in the script? Oh, this is what happens when Emily doesn't edit these things. Rosite spores grow crystals. We've seen them before in the Cosmere, and I think that's the first example of an aether we've seen in the Cosmere is Rosite. And then lastly, we have the midnight spores, which are a sort of like elemental darkness aether, I guess. A sort of aether of the dark. These spawn little goo midnight essence things that form a nice, interesting Luhel bond with the person that poured water on them. Or the person that's closest to them. We don't know too much about this yet. Either way, that's by far the most interesting that we have so far. Can't wait to see how this plays into the rest of the Cosmere. Can't wait to see how this plays into other secret projects, if at all. We'll find out very soon. And then there was more than enough outside magic going on in this story. We have examples of Elantrians doing Elantrian things. We have examples of general aether stuff, because apparently the aethers didn't originate on this planet. We don't really know where they did. We'll figure that out in the future. We have some magic from Nalthis. That was very fun. Some weird sort of connection-based magic technology that allows Fort to basically like text-to-speech sort of stuff, but Cosmere magic related. Super fun, fantastical technology. I love where the Cosmere is headed. We have some autonomy-ish mechanized beings. Those might be partially like a Nalthis awakened thing, or even like an Elantrian awakened thing. We don't really know too much about these yet, but hopefully we'll find out more soon. And then last, we have a little bit about Ulam and the Khandra. What the heck is he doing here? When did Sazed do what he did? We'll definitely be diving into this very soon. I can't wait to explore the lore of this, because this is just like scratching the surface of what we've been able to glean from this specific project. And I can't wait to see what other knowledge the other secret projects bring. It's going to be great. Let's score this. So ultimately, for story, I loved this whole story from start to end. It did have some sections where it dragged in the middle. In fact, it kind of felt like the beginning of the story kind of felt like a fairy tale. Then towards the middle, it turned into a Sanderson book. And then the climax was kind of like a mini bit of that, like a fairy tale bit with the dragon. And then the ending was like a Sanderson climax. Don't get me wrong, I loved it, but I would have preferred just a little bit more of that fairy tale aesthetic for the rest of the prose, less of maybe the magic reveals in the middle. I know, this is me saying that. Whatever. Either way, don't get me wrong, I absolutely loved this. 9 out of 10, possibly my favorite Sanderson book that I've read so far. Structure. Yeah, I kind of mentioned this a little bit, but the structure of this book, it was a little bit weirdly structured, but it ultimately wasn't that bad. Most of the weird structural stuff happened in the middle, and most of the weird stuff, it had a point. There was a reason that it was there, but, you know, I'm going to give it 8 out of 10. Lore, we got all sorts of good lore in this. Yeah, again, I can't wait to talk about it in more detail. We have plenty of stuff coming out about this and other secret projects. That's going to be a 9.5 for lore. This one, it was just chock full of juicy lore goodness. In an interesting way, this book really kind of reminded me of The Hobbit, and for that reason alone, I'm going to have to give the sense of adventure a 10 out of 10. Super fun sense of adventure permeating the entire book that goes very well with that nice fairy tale setting. Okay, 9 out of 10 for story, 8 out of 10 for structure, 9.5 for lore, and 10 out of 10 for adventure. Perfect. I'll see you very soon to talk more in depth about the lore and all the other fun stuff that we got in this book. Tress of the Emerald Sea, Lore of the Worlds. Peace out.